They called me into the glass conference room at 2:47 p.m. on a Tuesday. I saw Diane from HR already sitting there, tablet open, expression blank. Through the transparent walls, my entire team could see us. 23 people I'd worked with for 6 years, all watching. Evan stood at the head of the table, arms crossed, wearing that smile, the one that never reached his eyes. He didn't wait for me to sit. "We're restructuring your role," he said. "Effective immediately. You're being moved to a junior analyst position. Attitude issues." My stomach dropped. Diane nodded once, confirming this wasn't a discussion. Then Evan added almost casually, "Your office is being reassigned to me. I need the space." My throat tightened. Through the glass, I watched my co-workers look away, pretending they weren't witnessing my humiliation. But they were. Every single one of them. And Evan knew it. He'd planned this moment precisely. Public. Visible. Designed to break me. Security arrived before I could gather my thoughts. A guard I'd said good morning to for years wouldn't meet my eyes. He stood outside my office while I packed. 15 minutes. That's all they gave me. Personal items only. Photos, my coffee mug, the plant my sister gave me. Everything else stayed. They walked me to my new workspace. Not an office. Not even a real cubicle. A corner desk shoved against the wall near the supply room. No window. No nameplate. No privacy. Just a metal desk with scratched surfaces and a chair that squeaked. Evan walked past as I set down my box. He paused, leaned down slightly, and said softly enough that only I could hear, "Know your place." Then he kept walking. I sat on my box because the chair was broken. My hands shook. I wouldn't cry. Not here. Not where anyone could see. I remembered the first day Evan joined our department. 3 years ago. Nervous, eager, completely lost. He'd asked me 100 questions about systems, protocols, client relationships. I'd answered every one. Showed him shortcuts. Fixed his mistakes before anyone noticed. When he presented his first quarterly report, I'd rewritten half of it the night before because it was full of errors. When senior leadership questioned his analysis in a meeting, I defended him, explained his thinking, made it sound strategic. I'd built the version of Evan that now stood in my former office, the version that just destroyed me, and he knew exactly what he was doing. He remembered every time I'd saved him, every time I'd made him look competent, and instead of gratitude, he'd learned something else. How to take credit, how to position himself, how to eliminate the person who knew what he really was. The office went silent around me. Not literally. People still typed, took calls, attended meetings. But the energy changed. Coworkers who used to stop by my desk avoided eye contact. When I walked to the printer, conversation stopped. In the break room, 3 analysts I'd trained stood by the coffee machine. One saw me, whispered something, they all left. Only Marcus stopped. He worked in accounting, 2 floors down. We'd collaborated on budget presentations. He stood in the hallway near my new desk, looked around to make sure no one was watching, and said quietly, "I'm sorry. This is wrong." Then he walked away before anyone could see us talking. That hurt worse than the demotion itself. Not the loss of title or salary. The isolation. The way people I'd worked beside for years now treated me like I was contagious. Like proximity to me might infect their own careers. The next morning, Evan assigned my former assistant to himself. Her name was Bethany. She'd worked with me for 2 years. Smart, organized, loyal. She appeared at my desk at 9:15 a.m. with a printed list. Her hands trembled slightly as she handed it to me. "Evan asked me to give you this," she said. Her voice was apologetic. I read the list. Filing. Reorganizing archived client folders. Coffee runs at specific times. Shredding outdated paperwork from storage. Menial tasks. Things an intern would do. Things designed specifically to degrade me. Bethany wouldn't look at me. "I'm sorry," she whispered. Then she left. I stared at the list. Every task was deliberate, every item calculated to remind me of how far I'd fallen. Evan wasn't just demoting me professionally, he was systematically destroying my dignity. And he was using people I'd trained, people I'd helped, to do it. I folded the list carefully, put it in my desk drawer, started documenting everything. I spent the afternoon clearing old files from storage, boxes I hadn't touched in years, client records, budget reports, expansion proposals that never materialized. Near the bottom of the fourth box, I found a dusty folder marked Satellite Office Expansion Lease, 2019. I didn't remember it at first. Then I opened it. My signature was on the authorization line, dated March 14th, 2019. 5 years ago. I barely remembered signing it. There'd been some emergency. The CEO overseas. Legal scrambling. Something about timing and contract deadlines. I'd signed as acting authority to push it through. Then I forgot about it completely. The satellite office had been built. A small executive suite across town, occasionally used for client meetings or overflow workspace. I'd never thought about it again. Until now. I took the folder back to my desk, laid it flat, read every page carefully. Something about seeing my signature there, bold and official, made my hands steady for the first time in days. The memory came back slowly. March 2019. I'd been Senior Director of Operations then. The CEO, Mr. Wallace, was negotiating a major contract in Singapore. Time zones made communication impossible. Legal called me at 6 a.m. They needed authorization for a satellite office lease to finalize a deal with a pharmaceutical client. The client wanted guaranteed meeting space separate from our main building. Confidentiality concerns. The lease had to be signed by an executive with budget authority by 9 a.m., or the client walked. Wallace was unreachable. The CFO was in emergency surgery. That left me. Legal emailed the documents. I reviewed them in 20 minutes. Signed electronically. Sent them back. The deal closed. The client stayed. Everyone forgot about it. Except the lease was written in my name. I was listed as the authorizing executive. And according to corporate policy from that year, any significant use of the space required approval from the original signatory. Me. Nobody had updated it. Nobody had transferred authority. For 5 years, that lease sat in storage with my signature on it. Legally binding. Completely forgotten. The department meeting happened on Thursday. Mandatory attendance. Evan stood at the front, presentation loaded, looking pleased with himself. I have an exciting announcement, he said. I'll be relocating to the satellite office as my primary workspace. Executive suite. Private conference capabilities. More appropriate for my expanding responsibilities. He clicked a slide showing architectural plans, renovation designs, glass walls, imported furniture, a private bathroom, luxury upgrades. His eyes found mine in the crowd. He smiled. I like space. Power needs space. Some of us have earned it. Laughter rippled through the room. Nervous, uncomfortable, but laughter nonetheless. I didn't react, didn't look away, just watched him enjoy his moment. He had no idea what he'd just told me. That satellite office, the one with my signature on the lease, the one requiring my approval for executive use, the one he just announced he was claiming, without asking me, without authorization, without any idea I still controlled it. I took the lease home that night, sat at my kitchen table with a highlighter and notebook. Read every clause, every subsection, every footnote. Section 7, Paragraph 4. Executive utilization of the leased premises for primary workspace designation requires written approval from the authorizing signatory or their designated successor. Section 11, Paragraph 2. Modifications to the physical space exceeding $5,000 require authorization chain approval, including original lease signatory. Section 15, Paragraph 6. Unauthorized executive occupation constitutes breach of lease terms and may result in immediate access revocation. My hands shook as I highlighted each section. I took photos, saved them to 3 separate locations. Evan had announced his move publicly. He was planning expensive renovations. He'd never asked for my approval, never even thought to check who signed the original lease. He'd assumed his authority was absolute. He was wrong, and I was going to stay quiet until the exact right moment. I told no one, not Marcus, not Bethany, not my sister when she called asking how I was handling things. I went to work, completed Evan's degrading tasks, kept my head down, but I started documenting everything. Every email he sent, every task assignment, every public comment. I created a private folder on my personal laptop, recorded dates, times, witnesses. When he cut my parking privileges, I documented it. When he removed my name from client distribution lists, I saved the emails. When he made jokes about my career stagnation in meetings, I wrote down exactly what he said and who laughed. I wasn't building a case for HR. HR had already chosen their side. I was building something else. A timeline, a pattern, evidence of systematic retaliation. I didn't know exactly how I'd use it yet, but I knew I would, eventually, when it mattered most. 2 weeks after the demotion, Evan called me into his office, my old office. He sat behind my former desk like it had always been his. Didn't offer me a seat. "We're adjusting your compensation," he said, not asking, informing. "Your new role doesn't justify your current salary. We're reducing it by 30%. I stared at him. "That's below market rate for junior analysts." He shrugged, then performed better. My face went hot. "Evan, you know this isn't about performance." He leaned back in the chair, my chair, smiled. "Be grateful you still have a job." I wanted to scream, to tell him exactly what I thought of him. Instead, I nodded, said nothing. I walked out. When I got back to my desk, I added the conversation to my documentation, noted the time, his exact words, the smile, everything. Then I pulled up the lease folder on my personal laptop, reread section 7, paragraph 4, and smiled for the first time in weeks. That night, I created an anonymous email account, used a coffee shop's Wi-Fi instead of my home network, sent a carefully worded question to corporate legal regarding the satellite office lease executed March 2019. Does the original authorization clause requiring signatory approval for executive use remain in effect if the signatory is still employed but no longer in their original role? I sent it at 11:47 p.m., got a response by 9 a.m. the next morning. Per company policy active during lease execution, authorization clauses remain binding unless formally transferred or superseded by updated agreements. If no transfer documentation exists, original terms remain enforceable regardless of signatory's current position. My heart pounded as I read it, reread it, saved it. They'd confirmed it. The clause was still active, still binding. Evan's entire move to the satellite office required my approval. Approval he'd never sought, never even considered what he needed. I deleted the anonymous email account, went to work, filed papers Evan had assigned me, and waited. Evan authorized the satellite office remodel without going through proper channels. I only knew because Bethany mentioned it during a coffee run. "He's spending a fortune on that space," she said quietly while we waited at the cafe. "Custom furniture from Italy, some designer lighting systems. The contractor estimated $70,000 for everything." My stomach flipped. $70,000. Section 11, paragraph 2 of the lease required authorization chain approval for modifications exceeding $5,000. Evan had blown past that limit by $65,000. Without approvals, without following protocol. I thanked Bethany for the coffee. I walked back slowly. That evening, I submitted an anonymous facilities request asking for documentation on the satellite office renovation, who authorized it, what the budget was, whether proper approval chains had been followed. I sent it through the company's internal compliance portal, the one that guaranteed review within 72 hours. Then I waited. Again, patience was becoming my weapon. Facilities responded faster than I expected. An email went to senior leadership 3 days later. I only saw it because Marcus accidentally forwarded it to me instead of another analyst with a similar name. He apologized immediately, but I'd already read it. The satellite office renovation project lacks proper authorization documentation. Lease terms require approval from original signatory for modifications exceeding $5,000. No such approval on file. Request immediate clarification before proceeding with contractor payments. Leadership forwarded it to Evan. His response was 2 lines. I have full authority over departmental resources. Proceed with payments. He didn't even check the lease. Didn't verify what authority he actually had. Just assumed his position was enough. I saved the entire email chain. Added it to my documentation folder. Watched the contractor's work continue. Watched Evan supervise furniture installation through photos Bethany showed me. Watched him dig himself deeper every single day. I submitted the lease clause to compliance on a Monday morning. Not anonymously this time. Officially, through proper channels. I attached a copy of the original lease. Highlighted Section 7, Paragraph 4. Highlighted Section 11, Paragraph 2. Included my signature authorization from March 2019. Included the facility's email chain showing unauthorized modifications. Didn't mention Evan by name. Didn't have to. The documentation spoke for itself. Requesting compliance review of satellite office authorization protocols per attached lease terms. Original signatory approval appears required but undocumented. I sent it at 8:03 a.m. By 10:30 a.m., I had confirmation. Your submission has been received. Compliance review initiated. Estimated resolution timeline, 10 to 15 business days. I went back to filing Evan's paperwork, shredding old documents, making his coffee, waiting. But this time the waiting felt different. This time I knew exactly what was coming, and he had no idea. The department meeting that week was worse than usual. Evan opened with budget reports. Then he shifted topics. I want to address something, he said, looking directly at me. We all have colleagues whose careers have plateaued, who resist change, who hold onto past relevance instead of accepting new realities. People shifted in their seats. Nobody looked at me. It's important to recognize when your time has passed. When younger, more dynamic leadership needs room to grow. He paused, smiled. Some people don't understand that. They cling to positions they can no longer fulfill. Laughter rippled through the room. Uncomfortable, forced, but laughter. I stared at my hands, folded neatly in my lap, focused on breathing steadily, not reacting, not giving him the satisfaction. When the meeting ended, I walked back to my desk, documented what he said, word for word, added the date, the witnesses, the deliberate public humiliation. Then I checked my email. Compliance had sent an update. Initial review confirms lease authorization concerns. Proceeding to formal investigation phase. I allowed myself the smallest smile. Let Evan enjoy his jokes. His time was running out faster than he realized. Legal contacted Evan directly on Wednesday. I knew because Bethany told me. She'd been asked to pull files from his office. Overheard his phone conversation. They're asking about the satellite office, she whispered while delivering coffee to a meeting. Something about authorization documentation. He sounded annoyed. Annoyed. Not concerned. Not worried. Annoyed. That told me everything. He still didn't understand what was happening. Still thought his position protected him from scrutiny. That afternoon, legal sent him a formal request. I saw it because it was CC'd to facilities, and Marcus forwarded it to me. Please provide documentation authorizing executive use of satellite office per lease terms, Section 7, Paragraph 4. Additionally, please provide approval chain for renovations exceeding $5,000 per lease term, Section 11, Paragraph 2. Evan's response came 2 hours later. My executive authority is sufficient. No additional documentation required. He dismissed them. Actually dismissed legal. I saved his response. Added it to my folder. Watched him refuse to take this seriously. Exactly what I needed him to do. Evan decided to formalize his authority. Make it official. Unchallengeable. He drafted a memo declaring himself final decision maker for all departmental resources, including facility allocations. Had HR circulate it company-wide. Effective immediately, all operational decisions regarding department resources, workspace assignments, and budget allocations fall under my exclusive authority. This includes, but is not limited to, the satellite office executive suite. He signed it, dated it, made it official policy. I read it 3 times, saved a copy, because he just created a paper trail showing he knew about the satellite office questions. Knew legal was asking for documentation, and responded by declaring himself exempt from oversight. That wasn't authority. That was insubordination. And it was documented, official, undeniable. I went back to my desk, completed my assigned tasks, waited for compliance to see what he'd just done, wondered if he realized he was building the case against himself better than I ever could. Security disabled Evan's access to the satellite office on a Friday afternoon. Temporary suspension, pending documentation review. I heard about it from 3 different people. Bethany saw the email. Marcus heard it from facilities. Another analyst watched Evan try his key card at the satellite office door and get denied access. He exploded, called legal, demanded they fix it immediately, threatened to involve Mr. Wallace, insisted this was harassment. Legal's response was calm, professional, documented. Access suspension is standard protocol during compliance reviews. Provide requested authorization documentation and access will be restored within 24 hours. But Evan couldn't provide documentation because it didn't exist, because he'd never gotten approval, never thought he needed it. And now, for the first time, he couldn't just demand his way through. He returned to the main office, walked past my desk without looking at me. His face was red, jaw tight, hands clenched. I kept my expression neutral, pretended to be absorbed in filing. But inside, I felt something shift. The first crack in his armor. Small, barely visible. But there. Evan cornered me in the hallway Monday morning. The area near the supply room where no cameras reached. He stepped close. Too close. His voice was low, dangerous. I know you did this. I kept my face blank. Did what? The compliance filing. The legal questions. All of it. His eyes were hard. Fix this. Withdraw whatever you submitted. Or you're done. Completely done. I'll make sure you never work in this industry again. I met his stare, kept my voice steady, calm. I don't know what you're talking about. He leaned closer. You think you're clever. You're not. You're nothing. You were nothing before I came here, and you'll be nothing after I'm finished with you. I said nothing, just looked at him, waited. His jaw worked. Then he stepped back, walked away. I stood there for a long moment, hands shaking slightly, but not from fear. From something else. Certainty. I'd stayed quiet, denied nothing, admitted nothing, given him no leverage, and documented every word. He tried a different approach 2 days later, called me into his office. This time his tone was different, almost friendly, conciliatory. I think we got off on the wrong foot, he said, gesturing for me to sit. I sat, waited. The compliance thing is a misunderstanding. Bureaucracy. You know how legal it gets." He smiled, the charming smile he used with clients. "I want to make things right between us. You were a valuable team member. I see that now." He paused. "Let that sink in. How about this? You withdraw the compliance filing. Tell them it was a mistake, a misunderstanding about protocols, and I'll reinstate you. Senior director, your old office, your old salary, everything is back the way it was." He leaned forward. "We can fix this. Move forward together." I looked at him. This man who'd publicly humiliated me, cut my salary, assigned me degrading tasks, used people I'd trained to break me down, now offering everything back. Because he was scared. "No," I said. His smile froze. "No. I'm not withdrawing anything." I stood. "Is there anything else?" His expression went cold. Hard. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe," I said, "but it's mine to make." I walked out. The board launched a formal compliance review the following week. I learned about it from an official company email. An investigation has been opened regarding workspace authorization protocols and compliance with facility lease terms. All relevant personnel will be contacted for interviews. Evan sent a department-wide message 2 hours later. The board review is routine. Standard compliance check. Nothing to worry about. Continue normal operations. But his hands shook slightly during the afternoon meeting. His voice had an edge. People noticed, whispered in hallways, sent each other careful messages. Even Bethany looked worried. "Is something happening?" she asked me quietly. I shrugged. "I just work here." But I knew exactly what was happening. The board was reviewing everything. The lease, the unauthorized renovations, Evan's memo declaring himself exempt from oversight, his dismissal of legal requests, his threat to me in the hallway that someone had apparently overheard and reported. Everything I documented. Everything he'd done, assuming his position made him untouchable. It was all being examined now, officially, by people who actually had authority. And Evan couldn't stop it. The board's findings came 3 weeks later. Official, documented, unambiguous. I received a copy because I was listed as the original lease signatory. Legal found multiple violations. Evan had claimed executive authority he didn't possess, used the satellite office without required authorization, approved renovations exceeding $70,000 without proper approval chains, ignored repeated legal requests for documentation, issued a memo attempting to override established compliance protocols. The email chain showed everything. His dismissals, his assumptions, his arrogance. They also found the retaliation evidence. Someone had reported his hallway threat. Others came forward about the public humiliation tactics, the deliberate task assignments, the salary reduction. The pattern was clear, documented, undeniable. The board's conclusion was 2 pages long, but the relevant section was 1 paragraph. Evan's actions constitute abuse of authority, willful violation of contract terms, and retaliatory conduct against a reporting employee. These violations are terminable offenses, effective immediately. His employment is terminated with cause. I read it twice, then closed my laptop and breathed. Security escorted Evan out of the satellite office on a Thursday morning. I wasn't there to see it, but Marcus was. He called me immediately. "They walked him out," Marcus said. His voice was excited, almost gleeful. Full security escort, box of personal items. The whole thing. "What about his memo?" I asked. "Rescinded. Legal sent company-wide notification. All his workspace decisions are under review." Evan tried calling me 17 times that day. Left 4 voicemails. I didn't listen to them. Deleted each one without playing it. Bethany stopped by my desk that afternoon. "They offered me your old position," she said. "Team lead. I wanted you to know first." I smiled. "You'll be great." She hesitated. "I'm sorry. For everything. I should have said no when he asked me to deliver those task lists. You did what you had to do, I told her. We all did. That night I went home, made dinner, sat on my couch, and let myself feel it. Not triumph, not vindication, just relief. Deep, exhausting relief. It was over. The board offered me Evan's role 2 weeks later. Department head, executive authority, the satellite office if I wanted it, everything he'd taken and more. I sat in Mr. Wallace's office while he explained the offer. Salary, benefits, restoration of reputation. You've shown exceptional integrity, he said. Exactly what we need in leadership. I listened, considered, then declined. I appreciate the offer, I said, but I've accepted another position. His eyebrows rose. Where? Sterling Industries, VP of Operations. I start next month. He nodded slowly. They're lucky to have you. I stood, shook his hand. Thank you for investigating properly, for taking compliance seriously. Thank you for reporting it, he said. I walked out of the building on my last day with a box of personal items. Not many. I'd never accumulated much. At the entrance, I paused, looked back at the glass building, thought about everything that happened here. Then I drove to the satellite office, used my signatory authority one final time to terminate the lease. My signature, removing the space Evan had wanted so desperately, the space that ended him. I signed the termination papers, submitted them to corporate, and drove away,